Hey, it's Soul, and this is Warcraft Weekly, and we're feeling the absence of the housing test. I mean, I do have alpha, but it was such a treat seeing the creations folks made over the week, and I'm kind of a sad. But anyway, you can help support the channel by liking this video, subscribing for more wild coverage, and catch me where I'm live. When is the midnight release? Version 12.50, whatever. New Datamined information gives some strong suggestions regarding the midnight pre-patch event and the expansion's launch. According to some Wowhead data mining, the event begins the week of January 27th, 1 week after the Legion remix ends, and it continues till the week of March 11th. Now, let's make some guesses and see how this all plays out. December 2nd is when we think the next patch is going to drop, and that's 8 weeks into 11.2.5. That seems to check out. 8 weeks after that is January 27th, and hey, how about that? This can work, though considering this will be the pre-expansion patch, maybe it can or should come out on the 20th to get the kinks out, and that way the pre-expansion event can launch a little bit more smoothly. The pre-launch event will last around the 5 to 6 week range, and I'm saying it like that because Friday, March 6th might be the start of Early Access for Midnight, and Monday, March 9th could be for the general release. A bit of a side note, Big Boss Holly Longdale sent a tweet teasing the upcoming Midnight Beta, which feels like it's on track to start a week or two after Phase 5, so that could be in like 2 or 3 weeks. It's very interesting she used the word tinker in her tweet, which is definitely intentional, right? Anyway, it all seems to fit quite nicely. Season 3 of War Within is pretty much going to be the same length as any other season during War Within, and the pre-patch is, well, it's the pre-patch. Now, is this a confirmed release date? No. Somewhat related, I do expect by the time December 2nd rolls around, folks who have pre-ordered the physical Midnight Collector's Edition, they should get a code that lets them get access to the digital goodies and maybe early access to housing. Maybe by then we'll have an official release date because it's around this time frame when we get a roadmap of the year ahead. For now, though, we'll see over how this is clearly the longest season ever, and Blizzard is so out of touch with the real gamers. The other day, Blizzard put out a blog post that's one part them tapping the sign reminding players that no, not every add-on is literally being deleted, but it's also one part specifics on their intent now that we're a few weeks in and Blizzard can take a step back and talk about their progress. They made it clear the start of the alpha was them ripping most everything out, and there's this ongoing process of them replacing what's lost with features that play nice with their updated approach to combat. It's a process that's likely to end when the sun burns out. There are multiple camps of folks who will remain very worried about these changes until their specific needs are addressed. Now, in my opinion, the more critical audience includes those with accessibility issues, not due to difficult encounter design, but some sort of disability. Now, I like the perspective, but I can say, mathematically, there are a bajillion situations where folks may need to customize the UI to just play World of Warcraft, let alone participate in high-level stuff or endgame. Blizzard here has two goals. One is to get their base UI to be as robust as possible to fit those needs right out the box. The second, though, is to make their API capable for add-on developers to fill in the remaining gaps. I'm seeing some evidence of Blizzard being more aggressive about improving the UI via hotfixes, but big changes probably still need patches, while add-on authors, they're always going to be much more agile. Another camp of players wants to preserve add-ons to make the game more streamlined for them. You know, lots of quality of life to address, such as I want my unit frames to look a certain way, or I want my raid UI to include information that is important for me and my role, and I want to hide the rest. Now, once again, it's on Blizzard to update their UI for today's needs while allowing add-ons just enough access to let players get that certain color gradient or font or whatever from that one particular add-on. Now, that's the kind of feedback Blizzard needs, and the people who should also be hearing this too are our fellow add-on authors. They're the experts, and they're the ones best equipped to translate our wants into more technical feedback for Blizzard. All of these efforts are to address or to deal with this third camp of players, which has been the target of these changes in the first place. The folks that use add-ons to more or less automate parts of World of Warcraft gameplay for them. So I'm talking about when there's some audio cue that says frontal and then you do what they say, or to kick something, or to tank swap. We're probably talking about raid markers being thrown over people's heads because they happen to be the bomb. And we're most definitely talking about those add-ons that also tell those marked people exactly where to go. And in these cases, Blizzard is going at this from a different direction too, taking on encounter design in such a way that this sort of add-on functionality isn't needed in the first place. Now, it can be as simple as increasing the time it takes to coordinate big raid movements like this. It gives more room for voice or some other form of chat to communicate. And in other cases, it lets people get used to it and let muscle memory take over. In a few weeks, we're going to hit beta, and the next big hurdle to come will be with Raid and Mythic Plus testing. We've yet to see real combat in the testing phase where we'll see how gamers handle the lack of certain add-ons against the updated encounter design. It's not going to be perfect, but a lot of eyes are going to be on this. Okay, let's talk up the alpha, and it's going to be mostly housing. As of this writing, housing isn't testable, but there's some new information we've learned and we can speculate a bit on how private neighborhood types might function in practice. Let's look to good old MMO Champion and a few strings which look like a bunch of gibberish until we clean it up. It's still very wordy, but here's what looks like is going on. Charter neighborhoods come in two flavors, open and private. Open neighborhoods give its founding members 24 hours to choose their plots, after which the neighborhood is considered a public neighborhood and can't be made private again. My hopes are that this covers situations where just a few buddies, like, 2 to 4 people, they want to find a neighborhood where they can get the spots they want, and then random folks can move in and out like a normal neighborhood. This isn't really a solve for those who want an entire neighborhood all for themselves, but I'd like to think that after the recent stress test that folks have a better perspective of how isolated they can be, and I wonder if those people still feel the same way. It would be great if the minimum requirement is much lower than the 8 that we see from testing, because I think this covers a lot of situations players have shared concerns about. Meanwhile, the private charter neighborhoods look familiar based on earlier statements. The twist is it looks like there's a way to make these neighborhoods be converted into open neighborhoods if the neighborhood managers choose to. Now, I wonder what happens if enough people happen to leave these neighborhoods. Like, will the neighborhood be forced to eventually convert to this open type? And then we have the open and private guild neighborhoods. The open guild neighborhood rules seem almost identical to the open charter neighborhood, but the private guild neighborhood is worded kind of funny. It says that it'll remove all players who are not in the guild, which tells me it's possible to turn an existing neighborhood into a guild neighborhood. However, towards the end, the tooltip says it can be turned into an open neighborhood if there are no subdivisions or layers with other guild members. But also an open neighborhood can't be converted into a private neighborhood, so it's kind of confusing. It's data mining, go figure. I just hope that I'm right about the charter neighborhood and small pockets of people can at least have an easier time finding a few spots to call their own before letting the rabble join in. I also want to take a moment to speculate on the future of neighborhoods, because at least for the moment, it feels like Blizzard designed themselves into a corner. Because what if someday there are new neighborhoods introduced? Will a large RP community or guild want to move into those? I mean, maybe, maybe not, because I imagine a lot of folks will have designed their home around the exact lot that they're in, and it would be really disruptive to be asked to move and fragment their community. Or worse, if the neighborhood manager or guild leader unilaterally decided on the move, you log in and it's like, oh, what happened? Many folks have pointed out there happens to be a lot of mountainous areas on these housing islands of sorts, and Horde players have lamented the lack of spooky dark areas that the Alliance neighborhoods happen to have. I mean, never mind the small details like existing geography, those biomes, they're not in the Duratar or Ashara region, but they're definitely in the Elwyn and Duskwood region. But who's to say that someday these mountains might be blasted open to make room for maybe some underground dwarven magma kinds of biomes? Or maybe these peaks can be dumped with snow and made habitable. I have a feeling the midterm plan for neighborhoods is to make these existing ones even bigger someday, with biomes based on player feedback, but not before getting a lot of that feedback. There's a bit to look at on the housing dashboard. Housing itself isn't functional yet as of this recording, but there's some new information here we can speculate on. Let's take a close look at the tooltip showing the required experience to the next level. Only 10 experience is needed to get us this first level. It's been speculated before, but now it's really convincing that we'll level up during the initial tutorial while in early access. We're likely to gain a tiny bit of experience by earning new decor that'll get us the level needed to start building on our own. What's offered in each level has also been updated a bit, with convincing looking values for decor budget and new room types. At level 5, where this seems to end right now, we have 650 as our budget and a max room budget of 24, which gives us roughly like double the decor budget we have in testing at the moment. But we've seen these values, and even the meaning of these values can change. One thing does seem convincing though. I suspect these 5 levels are what await us during early access. We'll be able to get our feet wet and earn a few levels and flex our houses to reflect said level before others can. Now that's as far as we'll get until maybe at least general launch, when we're introduced to the normal reset and endeavors can start. I'll try to keep you updated as we learn more. Last thing on housing, just like I suspected, crafting orders will in fact be used to make decor. It's a first look, but I'm going to give some as-is feedback to get us at least talking about it. So far, the flow is you visit a crafting order NPC and choose housing decor. It's not sorted at all, it's just a big dump of a list, and I do hope they organize it into sections like, chairs and tables and so on and so forth. Now, once we select something, it's all familiar looking at first until we take a close look at how lumber is handled. Other materials are required to be provided in a public order, but are optional for private orders. In the case of lumber, though, there's no checkbox at all to indicate if I, the client, is able to provide lumber at all. The tooltip straight up says this reagent will be provided by the crafter. Now again, I'm giving feedback based on what I see, and this is pretty bad news. I'm going to try to convince you why. At the moment, lumber is a pretty slow resource to acquire. We expect changes to happen over the test cycle, but I don't imagine it's going to get all that much better than getting more than like a few lumber per minute. Now that's because lumber gathering is strictly for legacy expansions based on what we're seeing. Lumber is not going to be a thing in Midnight, and I don't think it's going to be a thing going forward. That's why lumber gathering probably won't ever be a bona fide profession, and it tells me that lumber, as this war-bound and non-tradable resource, it's mostly a way of controlling the supply of crafted legacy decor. Otherwise, the value of this decor would be a very short race to the bottom, because we have no idea how much old inventory has been building up in banks and bags over 20 years waiting for this very moment. Now, folks can make their own decor if they want to. This feedback I'm giving doesn't apply to everyone. But regarding crafting orders, with the responsibility of lumber on the crafter only, they're going to have to go full-time on collecting lumber from every expansion to ensure they can fulfill incoming public or private orders, and there's a lot of recipes. Early on, this emergent housing community, it's going to mob this market for the scraps of housing XP available from collecting things for the very first time. And it's going to feel really bad for the crafting industry, who has to put equal time into gathering, and they can't start any sooner than when early access begins. Without this cohesive economic flow, it's gonna feel miserable, in my opinion. Like, we're gonna see clients who have lumber but can only use it for themselves. Crafters will be scraping for lumber and they won't have any of it to use for themselves. It's just gonna be weird. The solution is right in front of us. Just allow lumber to be added by the client. Now, I'm guessing this is mostly a technical issue that hasn't been solved in the alpha yet. From memory at least, I don't think there are any crafting orders that use war-bound items as a reagent. Assuming that's the case, there's gonna have to be some under-the-hood sort of work happening to make crafting orders work with these materials. Now, there is a possible workaround to suggest. There can be a vendor who can provide a soul-bound a pile of lumber in exchange for their warbound lumber, sort of like how we trade crest for enchanted crest and apply those to gear crafting orders. It's clunky, for lack of a better word, and this will disrupt the values of lumber on all recipes. Ideally, they'll just get the tech to work right and let warbound materials be used. That would solve like every problem 100%, because, well, now everyone's lumber can be used. Daily limits to fulfill orders are already there to prevent any one person from meeting all the demand and being like too successful just because they're online more. And that's kind of it. Cool. Ship it. Just Blizzard send it to my PayPal, and that's the show. I kind of want to get a gauge of how I'm doing in the remix. Like, I'm just about wrapping up my gearing. I'm at Addon level 740 now, and I've stayed focused, at least these days, on doing all the achievements that get me exclusive stuff and later housing decor. I just got to get Karazhan and the World Boss achievement out of the way. Now, I'm just wondering how I'm doing on the power front, though, because I stopped doing a lot of the regular farming and grinding, and I've mostly stuck to the Eternus dailies and maybe one mythic raid a day. And so I feel good, and maybe that's the most important part, but I can't help but compare as well. Like, how are you guys doing on your remix progression? Like, do you feel like you're in a good groove? Do you feel behind, or what? Next week might be interesting because we'll be entering phase 5 of the alpha, and the entire Midnight Campaign experience will be available. It might be a good time for me to do my whole practical test where I try doing the whole leveling experience without flying at all, and I usually have a lot of fun doing it. If it's testable and you don't mind a bunch of spoilers, feel free to join me on stream for that, and otherwise I feel like I'm surrounded by content, and I'm sort of walking the line of being overwhelmed. Like, World of Warcraft is threatening to suck up all my free time because, like, right now I want to farm up Mechagon so I can make metal barrels. Yes, that is a thing. And then I have alt runs with the guild, and I have the alpha testing, and there's more housing coverage to show you. And at least from my point of view, it feels really, really good to be a WoW player and a commentator. I'm going to leave it at that, but let's wrap it up with a huge thanks to everyone who's been joining me on stream. We've had a ton of lovely conversations, and I really, really appreciate it. To our super patrons, thanks for the continued support. And then there's you, viewer, you made it to the end. You fed the algorithm. Now, all you got to do is like this video, subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.